welcome to BryzGarage. I'm going to take you through these two compressors. This one came out of my 2003 Hyundai Sonata. This one came out of a 2005 Hyundai Sonata. These compressors can have issues with them, and if you're thinking about removing one from a junkyard to put into your own car, I wanted to show you some things to look out for. So one of the reasons I'm making this video is I'm trying to show you pros and cons of a rebuilt compressor versus buying a new one. Buying a new one, of course, you have the best chances of it not breaking down on you again and not having to go through this situation again of having to install a brand new compressor. It lowers the risk to about zero, essentially. Whereas putting in a rebuilt compressor, you run the risk of it breaking down again, all to save a few bucks. So the question I get asked a lot is, would I put in a rebuilt compressor? And my answer is absolutely, I would. Knowing that it's been properly inspected, that everything's functioning properly. So yes, I would. In my case right now, I'm not going to, just because I'm replacing all of my parts that are all brand new. So I don't want to put a rebuilt compressor into a brand new AC vehicle. So that's why I'm choosing not to put a rebuild in this one. But I don't see a problem with it as long as it's been properly inspected and a lot of the components had been changed out or gone through or all that good stuff. So that's what I'm trying to show you with this video, and what things to look for if you are going to go the route of pulling one from the junkyard and making a decision on using a rebuilt compressor or not. The first thing with mine that came out of my vehicle, it was locked up. And I'm assuming that the bearing is seized. As you can see, the pulley turns, but my clutch will not. It doesn't matter if I engage it or not, it won't turn. On the 2005 compressor, the pulley turns as well as the clutch. So this has an operating clutch. So what I wanted to do was take this one apart as well as show you this one, and I'm going to show you how the clutch engages and how you could test at a junkyard to see if the clutch is good or not at the junkyard. Here again we have our 2005 model. The first thing we want to do is take a look at this harness. This is wire harness pigtail, and we want to identify if it has any cracks or anything and decide if it's bad. In my opinion, I would cut this off regardless and cut that off, cut this off, and wire in a whole new harness. If you're going to use a junkyard one, you just want a nice good connection, and these are usually fragile and break when you're trying to pull this out of the vehicle, that's especially where this pigtail's been interlocked for such a long time. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to turn our pulley here and make sure we're not hearing any noise. Now I do have a chisel under here to prop up our compressor just to show you a little better, but it might be scraping on there a little bit, but this is what it sounds like. So this definitely needs to be cleaned out, all up under here. The next thing we're going to do is check the clutch. So we're just going to turn it. And as you're turning this, you're making sure it's not locked up like our other one. You're just turning it to see if there is movement in it and if it turns freely. Also, you're going to be listening for a sound like that. Okay, so far so good. Next we're going to test the electrical portion of the compressor. Okay, to do that, you're going to need a setup like this. This is an 18-volt battery. You can use a 12-volt battery if you wish. Anything that's 12 and up. This is actually a battery from my drill. It's nice and convenient. It's what's on hand. So if you have one of these, that would be great. You'll also need a pair of vice grips and 2 wires. And these wires, they have alligator clips. You don't necessarily need the alligator clips on them, but it makes it a lot easier. So I have my black that is connected to my negative, and I have my red that's connected to my positive. So what we're going to do is we're going to ground our black here. We're going to do it to this little clip right here. So there's our black. And then with our positive, we're going to touch this pigtail. And you're going to see a spark. And what we're looking for is this clutch to engage. So it's kind of hard to see, but every time I go to touch this wire to our positive, it's going to send a signal and it's going to engage our clutch. So you can hear it click. And that's the magnets in there inside of our clutch, and it's causing it to engage. So this tells me that our clutch is working. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put our alligator clip onto our pigtail like this, and this will allow the clutch to be engaged at all times. So now that our clutch is engaged, we're again going to turn this, and this time you're going to see the pulley and the clutch turn simultaneously. And this is what would happen if your AC was on and it was running in your vehicle. Otherwise, just the pulley is turning if the AC is off. But again, with our clutch engaged, this is telling us that our AC is on, and again, you can hear the sound. So this is telling us that we have a good compressor. However, we still need to take this apart and clean it all out and replace the bearing. And like I said, I would do the pigtail. So instead of doing it to this one, we're going to do it to the 2003 model that I pulled out of my car. And the clutch is locked up. We're going to take this apart and see what's wrong. Okay, so from here on out, we're going to be tearing apart this 2003 compressor. To begin this has an 8mm bolt on the top here. You may need to spray it with some kind of penetrating oil or PB blaster or something like that to get it started. It looks like this is going to turn on me, so I should be able to. The problem is when you go to turn this bolt, you're going to notice that the clutch spins around. In my case, it won't because the clutch is froze up. But in a typical rebuilding situation, this clutch is going to turn on you, and it makes it difficult. These can sometimes be a bugger to take off, especially as the pulley turns while you're turning the bolt. You can stick a vise on here or a C-clamp to stop this clutch plate from turning. You just connect it from here to here, and then you're able to turn this bolt. Or you can take a blow hammer and hit the end of your wrench. Just give it a good tap, and that can sometimes free up that bolt right there. So again, this one looks like it's going to come off nice and easy. So we're going to continue to take the bolt off this. Okay, so we just removed the bolt. The next thing is taking off this clutch plate here, but be very careful. There is a washer under this clutch plate that can fall off and you could lose it really easy. And it's basically a little washer. So we're going to pull it up nice and slow. Make sure it doesn't fall to the floor. Okay, and there she is, standing up. You can see that right there. And it can sometimes be inside of here. And depending on the model of your compressor, you can sometimes have 2 or 3. But in the Hyundai Sonata ones, I've usually just seen the one inside of them. So again, be very, very careful that you don't lose this. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to take a look in here, and as you can see, there's a bunch of crap in here. There's also a bunch of crap in here. Okay, so after seeing all this dust in here, I would not use this one to rebuild. This one, you're taking a big risk. There might be some damaged parts in here. I just wouldn't take the risk. So one thing that you're going to want to do for sure before you rebuild your compressor is make sure you go through it, clean it up really, really good, look for any cosmetic wear, anything like that, to make sure that you've got everything and that it's going to be a good rebuild for you. So look for wear that shouldn't be there. As you can see in this, you can see it kind of chipped away right there. Again, this tells me that I shouldn't use this compressor. So this is something I'd look for before I purchase a compressor out of a junkyard. So this is where I would typically get to, and then stop and then look for another one. However, I'm going to keep going with this one just so I can show you how to continue to take this apart and show you what else to look for. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is take these snap ring pliers here, and we're going to remove this snap ring. Be very careful. This thing, as you're pulling it up, it can go launching off your snap ring if you don't have it on there good. It's happened to me, so be very careful. Alright, there we go. There is our snap ring. Okay, so now with our snap ring set aside, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to spray again some PB Blaster inside of here. This is where our bearing is. Our bearing is this inner ring here, this dark ring in this case. And we're going to spray some PB Blaster, and we're going to have to remove this pulley. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so now that we sprayed our PB Blaster in there, the next thing we're going to do is take a pulley puller and remove this pulley from the compressor. Here is our pulley puller. If you do not have one of these, you can actually get it off of here with a blow hammer. You can simply level this compressor, just kind of lightly tap the back of this pulley, and that can remove this pulley from the compressor. But we're going to use the pulley puller. It's a little easier. Okay, so now that we have our pulley puller on, all we're going to do is simply pull this pulley off. And there you have it. Another high potential for failure is this clutch magnet. You can just simply pop this off and replace it. This is what engages your clutch. It just has a grounding wire, and then this also has the pigtail connected to it. Okay, so typically this is the culprit. It's your little bearing in here. It wears out, the bearings go bad in it, and you have to replace your bearing. That's typically what it is. But as you can see, the race is pretty good. It's not too bad. So it's not my bearing. If I had to put money on it, I would have thought that's what it was, but it's not. So that tells me there's something wrong inside of here. And again, I would not use this unit to refurbish because you're taking a huge risk. If it's just the bearing itself that's gone bad, then yeah, that's not a big deal. But where there was all that dust and metal debris, I don't want to take a risk on allowing somebody else to put that into their vehicle and it fell on them. You want to give them the best chance possible. So I'm going to show you how to replace this bearing, and we'll go from there. Alright, so to remove this bearing, we're going to simply grab some 2x4s. We're going to keep a gap there, just about enough to ensure that the bearing comes out properly. Okay, you want to find something that has the diameter of the outer ring of the bearing, such as this. This socket is a 34, and it covers just about perfectly to get this bearing out. This way I'm not hitting into the race of the bearings. And then we're going to just take a hammer and we're just going to hammer it out and pop it out. Alright, so anyway, that's all there really is to it. We'll just pop out that bearing, put a new one back in, and put it all back together, just in reverse order from the way I showed you in the beginning. Just make sure you don't lose your snap ring. Be very careful, and remember not to lose your little washer that goes into inside of here when you're putting it back together. But that's about it for this. I hope this helps you make a decision on whether or not you want to pull a junkyard compressor out and give it a chance, or maybe not. But I hope this video works for you. Please remember to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and continue watching BryzGarage. Thank you and have a great day.